Okay, so those of you who don't know me, my name is Kenji Nitta, and I'm the pastor here. When I know what Christmas is about, it's about presents, it's about food, it's about gaining at least 5 to 10 pounds, it's about family. And it's a time where, for some of us, there's a lot more joy this year, and we get to reconnect with people we care about. For some of you, this is your annual train wreck, right? Where you have to be around your family, you got to figure out all the drama again, you got to work through it. This time of year, though, as a pastor, remember I'm a Christian first and a pastor second. And so what I do during my personal devotional times this time of year is I always think about, what does it really mean to be a Christian? Like, why do we do these cute kids programs? Why do we do church? Why do I follow Jesus? What does it mean to be a Christian? If Jesus was born on Christmas a long time ago, which we don't know that historically for a fact, but this is when we choose to celebrate it. But we know Jesus was born at some point. What does it mean for me to be spiritually reborn? And for all of us, what does it mean to be a Christian? Before I was a Christian, because I didn't grow up in the church, I thought to be a Christian meant to be somebody who had to follow a bunch of rules, judge other people, and couldn't have any fun. Except for the ones who were bad Christians. Bad Christians could have all kinds of fun, but good Christians, they couldn't. I had a friend growing up who was a Jehovah's Witness. And they said they couldn't have birthday parties. And as a non-Christian, I didn't know the difference between a Jehovah's Witness and, a high-level pop, lock, and break dancer. But my friend said he couldn't celebrate birthdays, and I thought, man, I never want to be religious ever. This just doesn't sound like my thing. Because I like things like fun and joy and doing things that make me laugh and smile. So before I was a Christian, I thought being a Christian meant kind of following rules, thinking you were better than everybody, judging people. When I was a new Christian, I still didn't totally know what this Jesus thing was about. In fact, after I was a Christian for about a month, I asked my new pastor, so what does Jesus on the cross mean? Because you guys talk about it all the time. And this is a month or so after I was a Christian and I gave my life to the Lord. I still didn't understand something as basic as the cross. So I went back and I just started reading the Bible over. And I thought, okay, what's this about? And of course, in the beginning of the Bible, God creates the heavens and the earth. He makes everything. A couple chapters later, he makes us. He makes humans. And he puts something in the humans called the image of God. Like humans are made in the image of God. What does that mean? One way to think about it is it's like there's this seed that's been planted in you, like an invincible, eternal seed it's a little fragment. It's a little piece of God. And he put that in every human he made. And it's put in the soil of our bodies and the soil of our minds and the soil of this culture. And it's buried there somewhere. And sometimes it's buried really, really deep. But every single human who's ever lived has the image of God in them. And there's this seed that's dormant and sleeping inside of them. Which means a lot of things. It means, one, doesn't matter what's happened to you. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter the crazy mix of life that always swirls around each one of us. It means that there's still something that's immeasurably precious, immeasurably important, and immeasurably beautiful about who you are. And yeah, the soil's gotten poisoned, right? We've put some hazardous materials in our life and in our mind and in our body. My body, for most of my life I grew this way. Lately I've been growing out this way. I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to work that way. But the seed is still there, even though the soil can be all messed up. I know things have happened to you because things have happened to all of us. None of us are safe from tragedy. None of us are safe from being hurt. And none of us are safe from having never hurt anybody else. Sometimes we're the victim, sometimes we're the ones who victimize others. But that seed is always there. That image of God, that piece of God is always in you. And it means you matter to God all the time more than anything else. Think about that. Think about the most precious gift you've ever gotten during Christmas. Or think about the most precious thing in the world. Like for me, I love nature. I love the mountains. I love being out on a trail. And I just love smelling the air and being in the air. But one of you is more important than all the mountains in the world. We think civilizations, they rise and they fall. There was a British Empire. Right now we have an American Empire. It's not going to last forever. No empire will ever last forever. But we think of civilization, and that's just like a flash in the pan compared to how precious you are, because the image of God is in us. But it kind of falls asleep. Something happens to it where it goes dormant. And the Bible calls this sin. And when I thought of sin when I was a new Christian, I thought, okay, don't break any rules, because if you break a rule, it's a sin. Even if it's a stupid rule. If you break it, it's a sin. That's not what the Bible teaches sin is. Maybe that's what Christians say sin is, but you read the book itself, it has a whole different perspective. Sin is anything that tries to kill off the seed. Sin is anything that tries to kill the image of God in you, or to steal it from you, or to destroy it. So sometimes sin can be breaking a rule, but I think that's a really shallow way to see it. If you want to be deep thinkers, which I hope you do, we got to get all philosophical up in here. And that means that sin isn't just breaking a rule. Sin is when the world, other people, Satan, spiritual forces, when they don't break a rule, when they try to break a person. Now, I've been affected by sin quite a bit. Even when I was a little kid, all of us at some point lost our innocence. A lot of you have been through unspeakable abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, spiritual. A lot of you have been abused by the people in life you were supposed to trust. And then sometimes life just happens. Sometimes you love somebody like you're supposed to, and then cancer shows up and steals them from you. And then your heart breaks, and there's a crack there that'll never be filled. Sin is anything that takes that seed and tries to poison it and tries to kill it off. And in that way, aren't we all sinners? Like, we're all busted up. We're all broken. But you're never broken to the point to where God can't repair you. But how does he do that? How does the seed come back alive? And for us, the simple answer is Jesus. That's why we talk about Jesus all the time. We sing to Jesus. We brag about Jesus. When something good goes in our life, we praise Jesus. When something goes bad in our life, we talk to Jesus about it, ask for his help. Jesus for us is the beginning, the middle, and the end. So why are we so obsessed with Jesus? Why is he so important? Because to us, Jesus is when the one who created all plants entered the garden. And he entered the garden for a reason. Look, I don't speak Chinese. Closest I speak to Chinese is when I'm ordering chow mein at the restaurant. Okay, that's my Chinese knowledge. And I've watched a lot of Bruce Lee movies, so I know how to speak English, and it doesn't match up with my words. And to me, that's Chinese. Okay? We should not look back. So for me, that's speaking Chinese. I don't know Chinese. So if somebody comes up to me and they speak to me like in Cantonese or Mandarin or whatever, if they're speaking to me in Chinese, I don't know what they're saying. And if you see the lives of people before Jesus, you read the books they wrote, you listen to the songs they sang, you lose yourself in their poems, and you see people who, they don't speak God. They don't know the language. And God can be trying to say he loves us as much as he wants, but if we don't know the language, how would we know that? I look out on a universe where humans exist, and I think that's amazing. And I see in that God's design and God's care for us, and that God wants humans to be alive, and he intended us to exist at some point, and he engineered all these different variables so that would happen. But you know what else I see when I look on the universe? Just vast, empty, cold, black death. I see good people having terrible things happen to them, and I see terrible people having long, happy, successful lives. I see tsunamis and school shootings. I see ridiculous politics and thinking that the next president is going to save us. I see all these things that people put their faith in, and all the ways humans destroy each other, and I don't hear God in that. So I look out on the universe, and some of you look on the universe, you think, well, God's so clear, he's so obvious. I look on the universe and I say, well, sometimes he is, sometimes he's not. Like, what is God saying to humans if we have to try and learn the language ourselves? And then we look at Jesus, and we think, okay, who is Jesus? The Bible teaches that Jesus was the gardener who entered the garden. He's God who became a human being, and he walked among us. And that when he walked among us, we started learning to speak God. We started figuring out what his language was. And we find out that God didn't just float along and look past people with stilly blue eyes, and he wasn't like Kenny Loggins in a dress, who never struggled and never had problems. When we see, I'm sorry. When we see Jesus in the Bible, we see somebody who walks in the dirt, who sees everybody in front of him, even people that the rest of the world decides not to look at. He sees people who are really sick and have been tucked away in the corners of society. He sees people who the rest of the world has chosen to hate for whatever reason. Sometimes it was just because you were a woman. Sometimes because you were cursed by God. Sometimes it's because you were a leper. Sometimes it's because you were a sexual deviant. There's all this list of ways that the world chooses to separate and hate people and say, you don't have that fragment of God in you anymore. You're not worth our attention. And God, nobody's invisible to Jesus. Jesus sees everybody. In fact, sometimes he ignores important people so he can spend time with unimportant people. He sees everybody because he knows that seed is always there. But he didn't just come to teach, although he did teach amazing things. He also came, and in the book of Luke and Mark and Matthew and John, he says in every single gospel, he says, I came here to die, to give my life. And you think, well, that's weird. If I was God, do you know what I would do? I would Bruce Lee the situation. I'd kick open the door. When things got really gnarly, I'd take my shirt off. If I had to go to the next level, what would I do? Who knows what Bruce Lee would do to go to the next level? Yes, Paul. You're a Christian, I can tell. He pulls out the nunchucks, and he had them in his pants the whole time. And then he starts tearing people up with his nunchucks. That's what I would do. I'd float in, and I'd just show up with my nunchucks, and I'd just start knocking fools out of air all over the place. But that's not what God does. God, instead of winning and being powerful and destroying other people and winning the fight, he dies. And he doesn't just die like of a massive heart attack or something. He dies in this humiliating, terrible, torturous, embarrassing way. In the ancient world, to die on the cross was like to die from an electric chair. Except let's pretend the goal of the electric chair was to torture you as much as possible before you died, and it usually took you about 3 days to die. So most people on the cross, they lived a long time before they actually died. I think the reason that Jesus died instead of winning is because had he just drop-kicked everybody, that would have said that God is powerful. But when you die for somebody, that only says, I love you. It doesn't say anything else. I have 4 daughters, and I love them all. And any of you parents, you understand the love of God because you've made insane sacrifices for your children. Incredible sacrifices for your kids. And you know what? You would make many more sacrifices for your kids, and you would not lose any sleep over it. If I could go back knowing how much kids cost, right? Especially this time of year. Knowing how much kids cost, how much of a headache they are, how much of an inconvenience kids are, how much things I'd like to do that I can't do because I have kids. And if I knew it was going to cost this much, you know what I would do? I'd have them all again. I wouldn't even think twice about it. And you guys wouldn't either. You'd have your kids again. You know you would. And so love always expresses itself in sacrifice. Love always expresses itself in generosity. And what Jesus does when he goes to the cross and he dies on the cross, he says, okay, this is how much I'll spend on you. I'll spend my life. I'll spend everything on you. I'll die for you. Chill out. I'll spend everything on you. I'll spend my heart on you. I'll spend my life. I'll even die for you. And that's how much I love you. Jesus' death on the cross says love. And what does love do? Love brings things back to life. Love wakes things up. Love nourishes. Love cultivates. Love helps. Love holds. in marriage, sometimes it's awesome, huh? Sometimes it's not so much. I mean, sometimes marriage is just the mountaintop, and sometimes it's the valley. Sometimes I really like my wife, sometimes I don't. Sometimes she really likes me, sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes we happen to like each other at the same time. Sometimes we don't like each other at the same time. Now, for those of you in a marriage, don't worry, this is normal. Like, that's how two humans live together. It's not supposed to be perfection all the time. You've watched too many romantic comedies, okay? It's supposed to be break and heal and break and heal. Why? Because you're two clumsy idiots trying to dance. Okay? That's just the way the world goes. So don't worry about it. But with all this up and down and all these ruptures and breaks in the relationship, love is when I want to be closer to her and more connected to her, and I want to sacrifice it, I want to nurture her and care for her. And when she does loving things for me, that's when she's nurturing me and caring for me as well. And we try and complicate our relationship to God, but it's actually quite simple. God is when the gardener entered the garden, became Jesus, died on the cross to say, I love you. And the life of a Christian now is trying to remain in that love. Is trying to experience how God wants to nourish you and care for you all the time. And that brings things alive. And so why do we do baptism? Let me test this water. Ooh. That's just right. So, so the reason we do baptism is because just like you pour water on a seed, if a seed wants to become everything it's supposed to be, it has to die as a seed. It has to be willing to shed its old form to become a plant, and to grow and to become strong and to bear fruit and to feed the world and to be something beautiful. And Jesus in John chapter 12, he says that. He says, if a seed doesn't fall to the ground and then die, then it can't bear fruit. It can't become everything it's supposed to be. And what the water in baptism symbolizes, it's an image. It's a symbol of God's love being poured onto that piece of God in you. That seed of God in you that's maybe been asleep for a long time, that's been dormant for a long time. And it's an image of that seed waking up and being willing to die so that something new can grow. Now, becoming a plant is not an easy thing. That's why some people, before they even break the soil, they stop trying. And sometimes they say, well, faith is a personal thing, and that's cool. It is personal, but it should be more personal. It should be so personal, I have no idea that you're actually a Christian. Right? That's what a lot of people mean when they talk about the faith being personal. It's like, yeah, it's so hidden, it's so personal that you're never going to see it. Well, love needs to be expressed. And if you live in the love of God, your life should express that love too. So baptism is a symbol that as a human being, all the sin and all the poison in you, that you're going to start letting God wash it away. And that new life is happening to you. And we believe that your spirit was actually dead and that it actually comes back to life. The nerdy term for this is regeneration. But if you want to learn about it, read Romans chapter 6. And it says that when we go in the water, it's like we died with Jesus. When we come out of the water, it's like we're coming back to life, a whole new person, a whole new kind of person. So get this straight. I get to baptize some of my friends today. And that is so awesome. Baptizing people is the highlight of my ministry. It's the highlight of me being a pastor. Because, church, this is what it's all about. And if you don't get excited about baptism, I don't even know what you're doing here. Because here's what baptism is. These are people proclaiming publicly, which is not an easy thing to do. And by the way, they're Asian, so it's a really hard thing to do. Right? We're private people, putting it out there. It's not so easy for us. Well, one of them's Mexican. She's going to come up here and dance and stuff, and, she'll be fine. But the Asians, they're going to struggle. But when you get baptized, it's a public pronouncement. It's a public proclamation, which takes guts. It takes courage. Baptism is standing on the table and saying, you know what? I'm a sleeping seed. My soil is all poisonous and jacked up, but I believe no matter how messed up I am and no matter how weak I am, that all the difference is made by the strong, healing, powerful love of God that has been chasing me all these years, and this is the day I get to say yes to that love, and I get to start becoming a plant. And you should be excited about that. Some of you are like, yeah, that sounds kind of neat. This is amazing. When I first became a Christian, it changed everything. And I'm still kind of bad at it, to be honest with you. But I'm working on it. But I had a string of broken relationships before I was a Christian. I hated the world. Like, I hated the whole world. I was mad at everybody. And I was not going to trust anybody, let anybody in. I felt abandoned by the world, and I was going to abandon the world back. And now 20 years later, or somewhat, after being a Christian, I've been married to my wife almost 20 years. I have 4 beautiful kids. I have a family that's intact. And you know what? It's not because I was a smart dad. It's not because I was lucky. Because I'm a moron. My family is intact just by the grace of God. I say there's 2 kinds of marriages. There's marriages that don't make it, and marriages that make it by the skin of their teeth. Right? And families are the same way. But I have an intact family. I have kids who I really love and I enjoy being with. I don't have a string of broken relationships. And I've gone from being somebody who hated everybody, wanted to withdraw from everybody, to being somebody who still hates most people, but loves some people, and wants to withdraw from people, but can't because God called me to be a pastor. And so I spend all my time with people, and my life's work is actually helping other people. And those of you who have walked with the Lord for a while, you know that you've experienced the same kind of changes in your life from having become a Christian. So baptism is a big deal because it's bragging about God's love for us, and it's celebrating that in some people that seed is being watered and it's being cleansed, and they're about to become a plant, and their life is about to change. So I want you guys to lose your minds when these people get baptized. Okay, this isn't the time to golf clap. This isn't the time to be polite. This is us bragging to Satan and the whole universe that love wins in the end. And that God's love has won in these people's lives. And for me, these aren't people I don't know I'm baptizing. These are people I know and I love. Well, 3 of them. Jamie, Hannah. But these are friends. And so I get to baptize them because I love them. It's going to be awesome. So I want us to pray. You guys can come on up. Let's make this mic active here because I'm going to make a couple of them talk. And then I'm going to dunk them. And I want this room to shake because you guys are so exuberant in your praise and celebration of what baptism means. Okay? Actually, let's practice because I'm worried about you guys. Okay, someone just got baptized, and your response is? I'll consider that a warm-up. That was a good warm-up. Okay, one more try as they're coming up. They get baptized, and your response is? And if a couple of you want to throw things, that'd be awesome too.